Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. We have an interesting book today and an interesting discussion. This is another one of those filler videos. When I started making these videos for the series Freemasonry and Satanism around September 2013, I didn't know I was going to go this far or how it would all turn out. Just one day I sat down and made my very first video on the Holy Bible, the Freemasons version of it. And I went on from there making video number 1, book review number 1, book review number 2, 3, 4. And as I got deeper into the program, I thought to myself I needed to consolidate some of the book reviews that were made on the same book or by the same author, etc. So it left some holes. And books I had read back then but had not made videos on were the ones I chose to fill in those holes. So I actually read them back then, and they were part of my education, the learning curve, to try to figure out what the heck is going on. And like a lot of curves, it's a slow growth, but at some point it becomes a tangent curve and just goes off, and you say, wow, I think I've got it. And this book is one of those books. Things you wouldn't imagine. The Limits to Growth. So I was trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Donella Meadows, Dennis Meadows, Jordan Randers, William Brehens III, and get this, a report for the Club of Rome's project on the predicament of mankind. The predicament of mankind. You can't make this up. So what predicament are we in? Why would it be under the title The Limits to Growth? Well, let me just tell you, some sinister thinking out there for a long time. As we all know about the history, all the wars, murder, theft, assassinations, and the stuff going on today with all kinds of gloom and doom predicted. Almost every year about this time, it's Planet Nibiru. And during the year, it's terrorism, economic destruction, sustainability, global warming, World War III nuking us, droughts, comets, asteroids, pole shift, plagues, Ebola, AIDS. I could go on and on. So let me read a little bit from the book. Got some interesting other topics that are related to this to add to this book to try to paint a picture. And a picture that is not too nice. To Dr. Ariello PC, whose profound concern for humanity has inspired us and many others to think about the world's long-term problems. So, profound concern for humanity. I like how they mix these words. And the limits to growth. And the Club of Rome, another one of those secret societies. You're not going to believe what I tell you. And the project on the predicament of mankind. So right there in the beginning, this particular doctor, one of the aristocrats, the elites of the world, his profound concern for humanity. So I just like putting these words together with the limits to growth and the Club of Rome, a secret society, and the project on the predicament of mankind. Do you see how those words don't go together whatsoever? The secret societies who swear under threat of death, having their throats cut, not to divulge the goings-ons or the secrets. So what would that have to do with his profound concern for humanity? What secrets are they hiding? What kind of lies are out there? And remember, these people in the secret societies, a lot of them, are probably being used as fools and dupes, like many of us are, people who belong to the Democratic Party or the liberal progressive left, they call it, rainbow agenda, transgenderism, homosexuality, adultery advertised. Ashley Madison, guaranteed to keep your adulterous affair confidential. But those people believe what they're doing. And the people on the right, the conservative Christians, not that they are Christians, they can say they are, and believing in this KKK, white supremacist group, white lives matter, under threat. They may be right on a lot of their issues, but they're being used as fools and dupes also, because they're being taken to the extreme. And the left are being taken to the extreme. Nobody's meeting in the middle to discuss the real culprit, the puppet master. We're going to talk a lot about that in this video. So anyways, so they think there's too many people on the planet, do they? Published in the United States and of America in 1974. So do you see how long this has been going on when we talk about the profane concern for humanity? This little dedication in the book. To the limits of growth. And down here, the Club of Rome, a secret society, and the predicament of mankind. You don't have to get into the book to see there's something odd about this. Okay, so now we got the author's note and the foreword. So I thought it was an interesting foreword that I'd like to pick apart also. It's easy if you're aware of what's going on, how to read this and pull the truth out of it and pull the lies out. In April 1968, a group of 30 individuals from 10 countries, scientists, educators, economics, humanists, industrialists, and national and international civil servants, gathered at the Accademia della Scienze in Rome. Pardon my Italian. They met at the instigation of Dr. Aurelio Prisi, an Italian industrial manager, economist, and a man of vision, to discuss a subject of staggering scope, the present and future predicament of mankind. 1968. Wow. So how many years have they thought there's too many of us? Right after World War II. The Club of Rome. Out of this meeting grew the Club of Rome, an informal organization that has been aptly described as an invisible college. Its purposes are to foster understanding of the varied but independent components, economic, political, natural, and social, that make up the global system in which we all live, to bring that new understanding to the attention of the policy makers and the public worldwide, and in this way to promote new policy initiatives and action. I would call that a little bit of mind control, because whatever these elites they deem as important, they will use propaganda. I have another book on that, by the way, Propaganda, by Edward Bernays. We'll look at this. Maybe I'll make a video. So there's plenty of evidence out there. They're messing with our minds. creating these people on the extreme left with the propaganda in cartoons, TV programming, newspapers, education in our schools, colleges, magazines, and the same thing with the propaganda on the right. You can't have a revolution or a war unless you create two opposing sides. The Hegelian dialectic, or the divide and conquer tactic that's been used by the elites throughout history. Nothing new here. What's new is that so few people are aware of what's going on, and they join the Black Lives Matter, and the other people join the White Lives Matter. Don't all lives matter? Or am I going to be called crazy for saying that? I've been called crazy by comments on my comments I make on press releases because I said we shouldn't be killing people. And some people would type on there, "Get back on your meds, Rick. You're crazy." So I'm thinking, do they think we should be killing people? It gets to the point where it becomes an irrational conversation. You realize you can't even talk to people. If you're on the right, a Republican, and I was at one time, I'm a registered independent now, thanks to George Bush Jr., I couldn't take it anymore. But when I talk to my Democratic friends during an election or whatever, they were hateful and nasty and seething with murder and rage. We were friends before that. And when I was talking with my Republican friends and telling them some of the things I disagree with, they would be seething with hate and anger and rage. You couldn't talk to either one. Imagine they can't even talk to each other. It's all intentional. And these people here have figured out ways to reduce the population. Can you see the connection? Divide and conquer. Revolution, wars. The people die off, and the puppet masters are in control. I've said this enough. And not only have I said it, there's plenty of evidence out there. Other videos, other websites, other books, many. And right before your eyes if you just pay attention and think. The Club of Rome remains an informal international association with a membership that has now grown to approximately 70 persons of 25 nationalities. None of its members holds public office, nor does the group seek to express any single ideological, political, or national point of view. And if you read this book and other documents, that's not true. All are united, however, by their overriding conviction that the major problems facing mankind are of such complexity and are so interrelated that traditional institutions and policies are no longer able to cope with them, nor even to come to grips with their full content. So traditional institutions and policies, traditional systems, are no longer able to cope with these problems. The members of the Club of Rome have backgrounds as varied as nationalities. Dr. Pesce, still the prime moving force within the group, is affiliated with Fiat and Ovalet and manages a consulting firm for economic and engineering development. So I think Fiat, of course, is a car manufacturer. Olivette, is that another auto manufacturer? Intel Consult, so a consulting company. He's also affiliated with, one of the largest of its kind in Europe. Other leaders of the Club of Rome include Hugo Thiemann, head of the Battaglia Institute in Geneva, Alexandra King, scientific director of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Well, I'm starting to get a little suspicious here. You ever heard of the Council of Foreign Relations? Heritage Foundation, Trilateral Commission, and so many more secret societies? You know who created them? What they're intended to do? Council of Foreign Relations is supposed to be guiding and directing the foreign relations activities of the United States, how we deal with other nations, what countries our armies go to war with. Who controls that? The Illuminati? The banksters? The Zionists? The secret societies? High-level Freemasons? If you said yes to any of those, you were correct. Suburo Okota, head of the Japanese Economic Research Center of Tokyo. Eward Pestel of the Technical University of Hanover, Germany. And Carol Wilson of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Although membership in the Club of Rome is limited and will not exceed 100, it is being expanded to include representatives of an even greater variety of cultures, nationalities, and value systems. Well, that's just wonderful. So all these elites are getting together to plan our future, and one of their issues is the limits to growth, the predicament of mankind. Can't say that enough. A series of early meetings of the Club of Rome culminated in the decision to initiate a remarkable, ambitious undertaking, the project on the predicament of mankind. So this would make one wonder, what is the predicament of mankind? And then one remembers the title of the book, The Limits of Growth. Then we get all these issues with global warming, sustainability, terrorism, biodiversity, and HAARP systems, microwave transmitters, controlling the weather, causing droughts, controlling storms, chemtrailing, sky spraying the sky with all kinds of chemicals, mercury in vaccines, GMO foods, all kinds of CIA and other governmental black operations, laboratory projects creating Ebola, viruses, and other plagues. Why? The limits to growth. You don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to discover the problem here. The intent of the project is to examine the complex of problems troubling men of all nations. I can tell you one problem that's been troubling men of all ages is these secret societies and elitist aristocrats controlling our worlds, bringing about all these wars, murder, and mayhem so they can live wealthy, opulent lives. Get into things that are really creepy, like spirit cooking and Pizzagate, pedophilia, sacrificing people, satanic and luciferic religions where they use the symbolisms in movies and TV programmings, magazines everywhere. Movie stars are doing this. Politicians are doing the devil side, the 3-6 sign, the closing the eye sign, and so much more I've mentioned in many of my previous videos. You don't have to look very hard, but if you look, you will find it. Alright, so the intent of the project is to examine the complex of problems troubling men of all nations. Poverty in the midst of plenty. Poverty in the midst of plenty. Why do you suppose that is? Degradation of the environment. Why do you suppose that is? Why are they dumping all those chemicals in the sky? Why aren't they cleaning up their act on Fukushima? And many other issues out there where the environment is being polluted. They're spending all the money, the tax dollars and other money they reap from fleecing it from we the people, on warfare and modern types of weapons, even biological weapons. I've made book reviews on this stuff. There's plenty of material out there. Just look it up. You'll be shocked. The 5G network doesn't promise to be a good thing. That's coming out very soon. Go look up on your computer the frequencies that a microwave oven operates on, or a crowd control microwave transmitter. It's a truck with a big dish on top. You'll see pictures of these on the internet. And they aim the microwave dish at a crowd of people. Crowd control. And then look up the frequencies which the 5G network operate under. And if you don't scratch your head and go, why would they be using microwave frequencies that I use to cook a hot dog or heat water on? Why would they be putting those in the air everywhere, permeating every single system and spot that can go through walls in your body and everything? Are they planning on cooking us all? Plenty of evidence on the internet. Please go look up the danger of the 5G network. You'll be astonished what you find. Remember, I'm reading this, 1968, 1972, The Limits of Growth by a Secret Society, the Club of Rome, and the Predicament of Mankind. And I happen to know a lot because I've been studying now going on 13 years. Okay, so degradation of the environment, loss of faith in the institutions. Loss of faith in all of the institutions. The polling rates of presidents and senators and representatives and corporations and everything is at an all-time low, and people are waking up. A lot of people are angry, making accusations, and that's called hate talk or anti-government belligerent talk, insurgency. So they have to nip that in the bud, so they're increasing the incidence of hate, of the right, White Lives Matter, of the left, Black Lives Matter, and so many other groups, Rainbow Coalition, marching on the wall being built between Mexico and the USA to control lawful immigration, and so many other issues. Women's march on President Donald Trump right after he got elected, and so much more. It's all created to incite hate. And then when the hate gets great enough and the people are rioting and fighting each other and killing each other, the government will step in and create hate laws. Then you won't be able to talk about books like this, or the Illuminati, or the Zionists, or witchcraft covens, or anything you disagree with. Homosexuality, destruction of Christianity. Anyways, you get a little emotional when you see what's going on. And you're just concerned, will the people wake up in time to save our planet? All right, uncontrolled urban spread, insecurity of employment, alienation of the youth, rejection of traditional values, inflation, and other monetary and economic disruptions. These seemingly divergent parts of the world problematic, as the Club of Rome calls it, divergent parts of the world problematic, as the Club of Rome calls it, the secret society, have three characteristics in common. They occur to some degree in all societies. They contain technical, social, economic, political elements, and most important of all, they interact. Wow. I thought I would just interrupt reading from the book just to go off topic just for a second, because of what these people back then are saying what's wrong with the world. Apparently we have some kind of cultish mafia, part of the Zionist Illuminati secret societies promoting all this Satanism, Luciferianism. Apparently they've actually taken control of our planet. Even in 1913, when the Illuminati, the bankers, Rockefellers, need some water, and Rothschilds, the banksters in Germany, Britain, France, Italy, everywhere, created the Federal Reserve in the USA, which is not federal. Weirdly enough, Alex Jones has a video out today. What's today, the 27th of August? And it's about protesting outside of a federal building, reserve building in, I think, Austin or Houston, Texas. And the police showed up and said, "You're on private property." And in the video, Alex Jones is making it quite clear. He goes, "Yes, sir," to the policeman. "You are correct, sir. Thank you very much. This is private property, this federal bank." He was making a point to the people. These banking systems are private property run by these Illuminati, Zionist, secret society, cultish groups. They want to protect their whole establishment. I guess we can understand that. And they're worried about too many people on the planet related to the book here for a long time. Even back in the 1800s, I've got material. Anyways, Crossing the Rubicon with Michael Rupert, a retired investigator from California. He tells all. I've made one video. I'll be looking at this again. You can go buy the book. But my point is, 657 pages of evidence, even CIA dealing drugs to the citizens, being behind all that. So that was Michael Rupert, Crossing the Rubicon. I made a video on this book, Series 144. Jim Mars, who recently passed away. The Terror Conspiracy 911. Look at this. 467 pages of material. And I have other books on 911, clearly an inside job by the secret societies in this book, The Limits to Growth. Am I making my point here? Nestor Webster, Series 148. I made videos on this. I'll be making more. World Revolution, the plot against civilization. This book, written by Robert H. Williams, The Ultimate World Order. I'm trying to make my point here. This book, The Limits of Growth, was written by the same people who are behind the Ultimate World Order. Robert Williams was a retired agent for like the FBI or Secret Services of the United States, the military. That's a pretty significant career to have. And then to retire and to create a newsletter and discover a book in a Texas library and try to expose it to the world, the plans and the discussion about the Jewish utopia. Now, when I talk about the Jewish utopia, according to Revelation 9 in the Bible, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not, I know who you are. These are the words from God, not me. And apparently a lot of people know now that these Jews, a lot of them that occupy and control the world, are really not Jews. They're Khazarians from Khazar. And 1,000 years ago, they adopted the Jewish religion. And they're very white northerners. And they were known historically to be very barbaric people. And if they adopted a particular portion of the Jewish religion, the Kabbalah, did they adopt something like witchcraft, Luciferianism? It would explain a lot. And the instruction manual for what this book talks about, the limits of growth by a secret society and the predicament of mankind. If you go read this, the Protocols of Zion, repeatedly published in 2005 and before. So when people say, well, that's a forgery. Well, forgery or not, and a lot of elite Jewish people and serious investigators 100 years ago or more have said, including Jewish leaders, that these are not a forgery or a fabrication. But if you read this, and you read what I'm reading about what they're saying the problems are in the world, and we know who controls the world, they're following this instruction manual. You can get this free online, just like you can get the Ultimate World Order by Robert Williams, free online PDF. That's why they're in these plastic things. I didn't have the book, so I just print out the pages and I highlight and read from that to make videos or parts for videos. So when I get back to the book here, my point is, when they're talking about technical, social, economic, political elements and most important of all, they interact. When I talk about what's in this book and all the problems we have, we know who's been controlling the world, and those are just 5 books out of my 149, almost 200 books, because I have numerous books that have by the same author. Like on series number, the one with 95 with Henry Ford, the International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem. He's got 4 books, volume 1, 2, 3, and 4, but that's one in a series. Rabbi Marvin Antelman, volume 1 and 2. So that's 2 books. And when I started making these videos, that would have been book review 13 or 18, but I consolidate them. So it's actually a couple hundred books that I've done book reviews on. And then for the first almost 10 years when I was reading books and not making videos, I have not made videos on a lot of those books. So I'm rediscovering books I read 11, 12 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, 13 years ago. I didn't start making videos or trying to go public until I had researched for about 10 years. I thought that was fair to myself and to the people I talk to. Who do you want to listen to? Somebody who hasn't done any work? And I haven't made $1 off this effort to this date. From any donations or any YouTube money, nothing. Back to the book. Yet despite this considerable knowledge and skills, he does not understand the origins, significance, and interrelationships of its many components, and thus is unable to devise effective responses. So they're saying mankind cannot understand the problems we face. And I also know that people who do figure it out, even President John Kennedy in his famous speech, where he said, "Secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life, and I intend to expose it." And he was assassinated shortly thereafter. A lot of other people have been assassinated. There's people who are making videos on YouTube just discussing that one issue about how so many people have disappeared, had accidents, been clearly assassinated. So there is a battle going on. And apparently there is a target, and the target is we the people. Even in the Georgia USA Guidestones, they're calling for a world population of 500 million, and some famous celebrities have called for a world population of 300 million. So some people want this planet to be one beautiful garden for themselves. And they're claiming overpopulation is the problem. The predicament of mankind. When I go on a plane ride from Florida to North Carolina and look out the window, there's huge amounts of underdeveloped land. When I drive from North Carolina to New Mexico or to Maine, New Hampshire, Florida, anywhere, the coast, from one side of North Carolina, the west to the east, is a good 8 hours drive. You get lots of underdeveloped land. Go drive down, fly on a plane from Florida to Mexico, the whole Yucatan Peninsula, which is the size of Texas, completely undeveloped. Central America, South America, and with global warming, wouldn't that free up all of Canada and Russia, which is probably half of the landmass of the world? Can you imagine? So there can't be an overpopulation problem. And if there were seriously an issue, then reasonable thinking, fair legislation could be established, and it could correct the problem in some areas. But that would not serve the elite's problem, and they would find other excuses to dominate and control the rest of us. That's my thinking. Leave a comment below if you have anything to add, of other topics. As I've made a lot of videos from the comments people left me, books they recommended, authors they recommended, videos they recommended. All right, the failure occurs in large part because we continue to examine single items in the problematic without understanding that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. That change in one element means change in the others. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I know that they know that. That's why they control the Federal Reserve. That's why they've crashed the system 8 or 9 times since 1913. They allow the population, we the people, to accumulate some personal wealth, and then they crash it. And people can't pay their bills, and their buildings and businesses are foreclosed on. The children can't go to college. They've created depression. And weirdly enough, they created one before World War I and one before World War II. And they're creating a similar situation now that they're saying that World War III might be looming. So they have to create this duress and stress on the people so the people will accept whatever happens, like what they did with 9/11. They needed that as a catalyst to go into the Middle East and destroy all those countries, machine gunning the people, dropping fire bombs on them, burning men, women, and children in all those towns and cities. Go look at some of the pictures on the YouTube image site of bombed buildings in the Middle East, and it has a little link to the particular building or city and a story behind it. If you're any kind of humane person, you'll be shocked. It'll be totally unbelievable. But like people have told me here in the USA, Rick, how's it affecting you? What are you worried about? And then I'm thinking in my mind, what kind of human would not be concerned about the mass murder of other humans? What are we? Are we animals? Are we goyim, like the Zionist, Kabbalistic, aristocratic Jewish people call us? Are we profane, like the secret societies, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and other cultish people call us? Profane? I don't think a lot of us are. I think we may not know what's going on, and we may be under a lot of stress to pay our bills or send our kids to school or whatever. They've created the system to keep us in that state of mind. Then they create all these instances of the White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and the many other groups they've created. Acorn, I could go over, can't remember all of them. But they seem to come up with new ones all the time. Even during the George Bush Jr. presidency, they had certain groups. Barack Obama presidency, they had different kinds of groups. Donald Trump now, we got these other groups. So people are operating behind the scenes, not necessarily Donald Trump. And they're trying to create this chaos and anarchy, which is a tactic they've been using for quite a while. All right. Part 1 of the project on the predicament of mankind took definite shape at meetings held in the summer of 1970 in Bern, Switzerland, and Cambridge, Massachusetts. At a 2-week conference in Cambridge, Professor J. Forrester of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, presented a global model that permitted clear identification of the many specific components of the problematic and suggested a technique for analyzing the behavior and relationships of the most important of these components. And I've been watching other videos while I do my book reviews and reading and other activities, and even with William Mont and other people. Apparently, it's very clear that our universities have been militarized. They're part of the control system now. Who would have thunk that, huh? Of course, we know they were attacking the young people if you watch the children's cartoons or the teachings in schools, which is in the Communist Manifesto, the trial hearings of the 1910, 1920s, where communist people were testifying before Congress that they were going to infiltrate all systems to bring all this chaos and anarchy about. And then they have to kind of convince the other people, other aristocrats, other professors, other students of the predicament of mankind, the limits of growth. They went through a lot of work to program we the people. Got books on the propaganda techniques by famous authors. There is no shortage of material. I could go to my bookcase right now and sit here for an hour and show you 100 books. Go watch my videos. Go to my website, rickmiracle.com. On the top left side, you can get a list of my videos, print it out, and use it as a little checklist or cheat sheet so you can go watch the ones you're interested in and check it off so that you can go through them in a systematic way that works for you. And in the top right, and nobody's made a donation to me yet, not $1, but is a PayPal donation button where it says item, just put in donate and then put in the dollar amount, use a debit card, credit card, and it would be helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, back to the book. The presentation led to the initiation of Phase 1 at MIT, where the pioneering work of Professor Forrester and others in the field of system dynamics had created a body of expertise uniquely suited to the research demands. The Phase 1 study was conducted by the international team under the direction of Professor Dennis Meadows, one of the authors on the front of this book right there, with financial support from the Volkswagen Foundation. So you had Fiat mentioned in this book, now you got Volkswagen. All these international corporations apparently will wind up being the new governments behind the puppets that they put in place. Even on the Georgia, USA guidestones where they want to limit the population, and look these things up, I say, don't trust me, to 500 million. It also says to eliminate all irrelevant politicians everywhere. So those politicians who are betraying the rest of us, it clearly says on those stones, those people will be eliminated also. The team examined the 5 basic factors that determine and therefore ultimately limit growth on this planet. So these elites don't want so many scurrying people running around. They call us useless food eaters. And they call us worse, you'll see. Population, agriculture production, natural resources, industrial production, and pollution. The research has now been completed. This book is the first account of the findings published for general readership. This is just a foreword I'm reading. You can go get the book. Buy A Secret Society of the Club of Rome. And I've got some interesting information to share about them. A global challenge. It is with genuine pride and pleasure that Potomac Associates joins with the Club of Rome and MIT research team in the publications of The Limits of Growth. We, like the Club of Rome, are a young organization, and we believe the club's goals are very close to our own. Our purpose is to bring new ideas, new analysis, and new approaches to persistent problems. So the persistence problems, the way I see it, is the existing hierarchy, oligarchy, kings and queens, elites, even the Vatican, when they have bad people in charge. And they've had good popes in the past. Some people have done great things. There's been good politicians in the past. Look at the politicians in 1776 that gave us the Constitution of the USA and the Bill of Rights. One of those rights, of course, is the right to free speech, which they're trying to eliminate. And the only way they can do that is if they increase the hate across the board with the left and the right, with the gays and the straights, with the Christians and non-Christians, etc., the Mexicans and the Americans, and all these different groups. It has to become an overwhelming problem. Did you hear me? It has to become an overwhelming problem so they can enact legislation to stop it, and the people will accept it. It will be planned. It will have been executed. It will have been intentional. And if you pay attention to the news and the things that are happening, and you're unbiased, you're not mind controlled, you're not a crazed liberal progressive hating Republicans, or you're not a crazed extreme Republican hating the liberals and all those people, you might be open-minded to realize you're being played for dupes, fools. And they make sure a lot of people have money and parties, and they're being beguilement. They think it's all going to go great. I get free cell phones, free food stamps, free money, free this, free that. And they'll get vicious and fight to keep that free stuff. But whenever the system gets in place, this new world order, trust me, the elites are not going to let you keep it. It's going to come crashing down on everybody. But first, they need to do a lot of things. They need to create hate laws. They need to probably make it illegal to have certain books. There's been books and movies written about this stuff and made about this stuff. They have to disarm the Americans. They have to create more chaos and turmoil in the world. They have to create situations like a incited North Korea and try to create some kind of nuclear explosion, blame it on this country or that country. They have to do something like they did 9/11. And they use situations like this to create World War I and World War II and hatred and all that to create the revolutions in France and other countries in Russia. A lot of espionage, behind the scenes things were going on. The public did not receive the truth. The public received a lot of chaos and suffering and death. That's just the facts. All right, persistent problems, both national and international, to the attention of all those who care about and help determine the quality and direction of our life. So they always write all these nice books, and they create these groups and organizations with nice names. Council of Foreign Relations, Heritage Foundation. Think about that. Heritage. Doesn't that sound good? And they have controlled groups like the Smithsonian and the Rand Corporation. This is so much evidence out there. We are delighted, therefore, to be able to make this bold and impressive work available through our book program. We hope that the limits of growth will command critical attention and spark debate on all societies. I'll bet they do. All those secret societies who proclaim Lucifer as their deity. Christianity is outdated, they say. Jesus was really an evil criminal. He had to be crucified. False prophet. What do you believe? Look what they're bringing us. I'll go with Jesus' teaching anytime. He added a commandment to the commandments, is that we are to love one another. How horrible of Jesus to do that. Of course, that went against the grain of the Pharisees back then, the leaders of the Jews. One group of leaders, one cult, one tribe. A lot of the other Hebrews, Jewish people back then, were following Jesus around and listening to him and big fans of Jesus. And that angered the leaders of the Jews who were in charge, the Pharisees and other elites. And they had the ear of Rome, because Rome wanted to keep the area in peace. They controlled a lot of the world with the Roman Empire. So to keep the peace, they were listening to the Pharisees. And even at the trial, Pontius Pilate, the leader of the Romans, assigned to that area, said, wait a minute. You know, he heard also that Jesus was the Son of God. He said, I don't want this on my head. Who would want that on their head? To crucify the Son of God. Can you see his point of view? And he listened to him. He brought Jesus before him, and he was a little perplexed. And he's like, what's going on here? And he offers the Jews that he should release Jesus or Barabbas, a thief and a criminal. And the Jews screamed out in the crowd, release Barabbas, crucify Jesus. So Pontius Pilate was further perplexed. And he goes, I don't want this on my head. And the Jewish people in the crowd, it's in the Bible, exclaimed, let it be on our heads and our children's heads. Could the diaspora, the Jews being dispersed all over the world for a couple thousand years, assuming, and I do assume, that we're spiritual beings in these biological bodies. Too much evidence. I made a lot of videos on that. Could the spiritual world, God or whoever you want to call him, the Father of Jesus, as Jesus always said, don't be praising me, praise the Father. Could God, the powers that be, have forced those Jews to be dispersed and not be all together, maybe for their own benefit to learn something and for the benefit of the rest of the planet? But now, with a lot of espionage, World War I, World War II, and they have a state called Israel, and they're all back together after they were forcibly dispersed 2,000 years ago. Do you think that can be good for us? And there apparently a lot of those people are behind the secret societies. Do you think that can be good for us? Just using my common sense, I would say it might not be good for us, and prophecy says it won't be good for us, and that they're expecting some kind of spiritual being to become in some man that they're going to call a new leader, a new king, who should be called the Antichrist. It's part of the prophecy to unfold. And we're to have a World War III and an Armageddon. But again, it's not so much what happens to us. It's what we do about it when it does happen to us. I thought about this long and hard. You stock up on a bunch of food, canned food, water, rifles, handguns, weapons, and you got you, your wife, a couple kids all barricaded up on some mountain. And then families come walking up the street, dying of thirst and hunger with children, and you scream out at them, "Go away or I'll kill you." And I'm just thinking, how damaging would that be to that person's soul? Because, 2 or 3 days later, another greater horde of people will come by and actually make it in there and kill him. And then he gets up to the heaven or wherever it is, and he has to explain why he killed all those people when he had some food and water. So somebody's trying to create this adverse situation where people have to make desperate situations of one kind or another. That seems pretty clear. So we all need to rethink our position on many issues and try to forgive people, because we may not like the gay agenda and all of the stuff they're throwing in our faces. We can pray for them instead of hating them. We may not like this particular group or whatever, the Arabs or Muslims, because the government says that they're responsible for 9/11. But we can rethink it and look it up and feel sorry and pray for the Arabs instead of just watching with ignorance and apathy about their slaughter and destruction of all of their lands, the size of the United States when you include North Africa and Egypt and the Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Ukraine, and much more, and what's to come. So I'm just saying we need to kind of get a handle on what we think and who's really behind all this. We hope that the limits of growth will command critical attention and spark debate in all societies. We hope that it will encourage each reader to think through the consequences of continuing to equate growth with progress. And we hope that it will lead thoughtful men and women in all fields of endeavor to consider the need for concerted action now if we are to preserve the habitability of this planet for ourselves and our children. So they're saying for themselves and their children, their secret societies. Didn't say here for everybody. William Watts, President, Potomac Associates. So all I read was the foreword. There's plenty of stuff in this book. But before I do, I'd like to talk about the Club of Rome and its connections to the Illuminati and other organizations like them, to show you where the information and direction of these elitists who control our politicians, our presidents, and these huge corporations, where it's all coming from and what they think about us. All right, I went on my computer and put in the Club of Rome. You can do this yourself. And you got the Club of Rome Wikipedia, Club of Rome conspiracywiki.com, Club of Rome Unraveling the Club of Rome Part 1, Recycle Washington, founded in 1968 at David Rockefeller's estate in Italy. Final Warning, the Club of Rome and Population Reduction, the Club of Rome Limits to Growth AIDS Epidemic. A little concerning, you think? So just pointing out, you can go on the internet and look this up. I did. We'll be looking at a document. The Club of Rome, Declaration of the Club of Rome, Brussels, Club of Rome Ministries online, a global think tank like the Heritage Foundation, Council of Foreign Relations, all these secret societies. The Club of Rome Jeremiah Project. Wow. The New World Order Pyramid, the New Methuselah Organization. And there are down here, as you can see, 295,000 results. So take a look at that. So you can go on your computer and look up this document yourself. I'll briefly scan it for this video. But David Rockefeller is definitely one of the bloodlines of the Illuminati, according to Fritz Springmeier's book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. He recently died. So there's a lot to say that he's one of the insiders, part of the elite aristocrats of the world, banksters. And the Rockefeller goes all the way back. Eustace Mullins, the book I did there, not AIDS, but Murder by Injection, Eustace Mullins, series number 15. Go watch that video. They're the ones responsible for fluoride in the water, taking over the medical establishment, educational institutions. Anyway, so they create an organization, these people, a group of world citizens sharing a common concern for the future of humanity. It consists of current and former heads of state, United Nations bureaucrats, high-level politicians, and government officials, diplomats, scientists, economists, and business leaders from around the globe. Here we go. Many people have heard of the Trilateral Commission, the Council of Foreign Relations. What do they have in common with the Club of Rome? They were all founded by Rockefeller. The head honchos at each organization sits on the board of the Council of Rome. The Trilateral Commission, the Council of Foreign Relations, are really just the public relations unit of the Club of Rome. So it seems like the Club of Rome is sitting at the head of the table. This particular author says, I have been tirelessly talking about Agenda 21. So I hope that people are aware of this little nugget of legislation by now. It was the outcome of the Club of Rome, a think tank, to provide suggestions to the United Nations. So the United Nations is focusing on Agenda 21, you see here, which is focusing on biodiversity, sustainability, and depopulation. I think it's now called Agenda 2030, and if you divide 20 by 30, it equals 666. Just funny little things you learn when you start looking into stuff. We are currently seeing all these suggestions coming to fruition, like the Protocols of Zion, Jewish aristocrat, the Jewish utopia, as current legislation bombards us daily. America is being radically transformed. White Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter. Gay pride groups versus the Christians. Poor versus the rich. Americans against the Mexicans. Americans against Russians today and against China tomorrow. And after 9/11, it was against all of the Arabs. You think these world think tanks are doing us any favors? Scroll down some more here. Their mission can most readily surmised just by looking at the graphic they designed on their mission statement. So there's the graphic. Peace and security, social transformation, internet development, globalization, environmental resources. So they're pretty well focused on everything. Environmental resources. This cluster relates climate change, peak oil, ecosystems, and water. I don't have to read all this. You can look it up. You can pause your computer. Globalization. This cluster relates interdependence, distribution of wealth and income, demographic change, employment, trade, and finance. So you think the things are going on in your world by accident? Think again. World development. The scandal of abiding poverty, deprivation, inequality, exclusion in a wealthy world must be created. You really think that's why they did 9/11, World War I, World War II? And the Rothschilds were behind the financing of the taking over of Palestine. That's where the money came from. And the influence on political leaders were with the Jewish elite all over the world. And a lot of Jewish people, like Benjamin Friedman had warned us about in that video. Social transformation. This cluster relates social change, gender equality, values, ethics, religion, spirituality, culture, identity, behavior. So you think things have been changing on their own. Please go look up this document. Peace and security. The present path of world development, risk, alienation, polarization, violence, conflict, and preservation of peace is vital in itself, but is also a precondition for progress and for the resolution of the issues which threaten the future. So they say things got to get worse before they get better. Just remember the movie Hunger Games. What's better for them may not be better for us. All right. Look at some of the members here. Some current members of the Club of Rome and its two siblings. Al Gore, we know who he is, and he gets a Nobel Peace Prize. Weirdly enough, right after Obama was elected president, he got a Nobel Peace Prize. What did they get Nobel Peace Prizes for? He chaired, Al Gore, a meeting of the full Club of Rome held in Washington, D.C. Wouldn't you have liked to sit in on that meeting? Javier Solana, General Secretary of the Council of the European Union. Wow, some people pretty high up. The leader of the European Union is on the council. Maurice Strong, former head of the United Nations Environmental Program. That's a suspect person if you look him up. Michael Gorbachev, one of the leaders of Russia. Anne Ulrich, population biologist, married to Paul Ulrich. He was the author of a book called The Population Bomb. And she has authored many books on humane overpopulation. So you wonder why they're promoting global warming, global cooling, climate change with the HAARP transmitters, weather warfare, and all this craziness. There is a plan, including Friends of the Earth and the Sierra Club. They always like to use these nice names. David Rockefeller, executive member, former and chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, founder of the Trilateral Commission. So who do you think's in control of our politicians? Bill Clinton, he's a former president of the United States. He's on the Club of Rome. He's not even from Rome. He's from Arkansas. Makes you wonder. Founder of the Clinton Global Initiative. Jimmy Carter, Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Bill Gates, the guy who said that vaccines will be used to control the population, Reduce it. Why would they want to reduce the population with vaccines? Maybe that's why they put mercury in them. Look it up. Founder of Microsoft. Ted Turner, he said some bad things about too many people on the planet. George Soros, he's the guy that's being accused of financing White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and all these demonstration, protests, and riots for public consumption. Tony Blair, former leader of the United Kingdom. Deepak Chopra, New Age guru. I keep saying the New Age propaganda is part of all of this. Desmond Tutu, South American bishop and activist, Nobel Prize winner. Henry Kissinger, accused of a lot of genocide all over the world. Timothy Rith, United Nations Foundation president. Oh my, a lot of people here. Global Marshall Plan. The Yale Center for the Study of Globalization. You think the New World Order is just a myth? You think they're serious? You think they would use propaganda to deceive us? Murder people? Whistleblowers? The Club of Budapest is an offshoot of the Club of Rome, designed to promote a global green agenda through art and culture. The Governors of Nations, Education of Wisdom, Public Health Policy, the Ethics of Planetary Freedom. Well, I like to pay attention to what these groups do, not what they say, because they always use nice words. The Manifesto of the Spirit of the Planetary Consciousness. The Club of Madrid, Michael Gorbachev. A quick perusal of the membership list. Bill Clinton, Gorbachev, Carter. So many names here. You can click a button. You can find this on the internet. World Commission on Global Consciousness and Spirituality. United Nations Foundation. So the United Nations appears to be under the control of these people promoting a global New World Order. Not going to be good for us. Look what they're doing to get there. Global leadership on climate action. They're using the climate issue. Sky spraying chemicals in the sky. Is a joint initiative of the United Nations Foundation and the Club of Madrid, which aims to design a framework for a new enforceable international agreement on climate change. So they're pulling out all of the tools out of the propaganda tool bag. Gorbachev Foundation, joint conferences, Green Cross International, Green Cross Charter, life is sacred. That's weird for some folks interested in depopulating the planet, and life is sacred. So I guess life is sacred. It depends on whose life we're talking about. All forms of life have their own intrinsic value and share our planetary home in an interdependent community. And a lot of people are buying this garbage, not knowing that their targets and their children and their descendants will never exist. If they do exist, they might be part of the population that gets depopulated. Whether they use biological weapons or create some kind of war, or even worse. All parts of this community are essential to the functioning of the whole and beauty of the earth. Like I said, they use beguilement. They want to reel people in. And its life is food for the human spirit. And they're trying to destroy people's belief in God, in Christianity, in Jesus. But then they say their life is food for the human spirit. So there's just so much here that I could read. Founding partners, Club of Rome, Club of Budapest, World Wisdom Council, Gorbachev Foundation, World Commission on Global Consciousness. Remember, they're pulling out the 5G network, which will have very high frequencies, microwaves, and everything on the planet will be connected, and it's supposed to be quite controlling
for the world, and those frequencies can probably cook you alive. So for people who resist, toss away your cell phone immediately, because that'll probably be used against you maybe. Alright, link bank to Puppet Masters, Spiritual United Nations, the Club of Rome. So you got people who make comments. So this guy says, the next time I read a blog, I hope that it won't fail me just as much as this one did. I mean, yes, it was my choice to read through. However, I generally believe you'd have something useful to talk about. All I hear is a bunch of complaining about something you can't fix if you weren't too busy searching for attention. Everybody can have their own opinion. This guy says, to me, this information is very crucial. I appreciate it with both hands open. It puts perspective on the extent of fake Jews' control at the top of the world and how long their tentacles extend in order to destroy the children of Israel. So like I said in the Bible, Revelation 9, it clearly says, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not. So who are they? And apparently they are the Ashkenazi Jews, which are really not Hebrews, who took over as a religion for their own Judaism about 1,000 years ago. And even the Shepherdetic Jews, with the word shepherd, the Hebrews, they've had lots of problems with the Ashkenazi Jews, with the last part called Nazis. And this has been going on for hundreds and thousands of years, and I've made videos on this, and I will continue to talk about it. We have some very dangerous people in charge of our world, and they are everywhere, it says right here. Global government, education, science, religion, etc., all which are aimed at eradicating the chosen people by God, the Israelites. So believe what you want to, their agenda is global, and their main presence in Israel today is to render the Middle East ungovernable and destroy the people of Israel. And the main focus, I believe, is to render the whole world ungovernable and bring about this new age. So there's plenty of comments here. A lot of people leaving comments. Please go look up this website. Rick Miracle reporting.
Oh my, the information you can discover if only we look. The limits to growth. A report from the Club of Rome's Project on the Predicament of Mankind, created by the Rockefellers. Isn't that interesting? I was looking at Fritz Springmeier's book. I looked up Rockefellers. Bloodline of the Illuminati. Look at the symbolism. So who is the Illuminati? If the Rockefellers are one of the 13 bloodlines, Rothschilds, other names like Onassis, Lai, Kennedy, DuPont, Collins, Bundy, Astor. This gets interesting here. Look at this page. Pause your computer, you're not going to believe it. It says, Rockefeller presents President Johnson with population control legislation. Wasn't it Johnson who took over after President John Kennedy's assassination? The Rockefellers control both education and religion in this country by their foundations, all these secret societies. One of the Rockefeller wives teamed with a lady from both the DuPont and the Astor families to support Margaret Sanger's activities. The Rockefellers, especially David Rockefeller, were behind the Trilateral Commission being set up, which joined Japanese, American, and European policymakers. So apparently there's the Rockefeller Center in New York, which apparently has a lot of Luciferic satanic symbols, and even a statue of Prometheus, Rockefeller Center, New York City. Some have viewed this as Apollo. Both Prometheus and Apollo are gods of enlightenment. Noted historian James Billington, in his great book, Fire in the Minds of Men, documents how Prometheus was the symbol of the occult hierarchy and the revolutions revolving back to the classic golden age. They created Apollo, son of Zeus, and became the sun god Nimrod. Well, that explains the all-seeing eye with the sun behind it in the pyramid on the US $1 bill. But Rockefeller presents President Johnson with population control legislation. So we can say that on top of the Council of Foreign Relations and the Club of Rome and all those organizations would be the Illuminati, the same family, the Rothschilds, who financed the Zionist movement to establish the state of Israel in Palestine. And they couldn't get their hands on the Palestinian land because two big reasons. One, the Ottoman Empire, which was located in Turkey, controlled the whole Middle East. And two, governments like Britain and the United States, etc., wouldn't go along to support a few Zionist Jewish people against the entire Arab nations, the size of the United States or larger. So it took a lot to turn that all around, and a lot was World War I, World War II, and 9/11, etc., as we all know. Now, knowing all that, knowing they were publishing books about like this, knowing it's the higher level was the Illuminati, and apparently they're into some Luciferic satanic religion involving Isis, Osiris, Horus, the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, represented by the eye on the Egyptian hieroglyphics. I went and looked up a few documents on the Illuminati. And they were, even then, the Rockefellers were giving President Johnson documents or legislation on population control back then. So what do you suppose President John Kennedy knew? What would cause them to assassinate him? So I did find some documents. I'll finish up this video by reading from some of these documents. Maybe taking another quick peek at this book. There's some cool charts in there showing how the whole world is going to run out of everything if we keep having people. Now you got to remember, these people, the Illuminati, are deceivers. Their deity is Lucifer, the devil, which is the deceiver. You got to keep that in your mind. I got to keep it in my mind. When you talk about all these things that they are promoting and creating, like the New Age, like the White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Women's March on Washington after President Donald Trump got elected, and all these other groups they've been organizing for the last 20 or 30 years, or probably further back, even with the CIA's involvement of bringing drugs to America, heroin, LSD, cocaine, marijuana, creating the hippie age. Over in Europe, they were creating festivals. It all seems to be an intentional destruction of humanity, the world that we know, into some kind of chaos and anarchy, a Mad Max type of world or Hunger Games movie type of world. And these aristocrats of the world, like that one book by Professor Higgins, The Jewish Utopia, by Robert Williams, who wrote the book I showed you, The Ultimate World Order. And also, this is my series, Freemasonry and Satanism, which I have a 149 in the series now, on 149 different books. Some of those series include numerous books. So almost 200 books, over 300 videos, 500 hours, 13 years coming to a close for my research. And I believe I have an opinion on what this is all about. And these couple documents I'm about to read from kind of sum it up. And their intentions are summed up here. In the Georgia, USA Guidestones, where they want to have a world population of 500 million, tells us everything. They want to have enough people to be their world servants, to serve the aristocrats, to serve the elites. These people who think they are some kind of demigod, some kind of divine DNA, and apparently some serpent, Lucifer, satanic being is their god. Weirdly enough, correlating a lot that's in the Bible. Correlating a lot what Jesus said it's in the Bible. All right, one document I found. Population Control, New World Order Style. You can go find these documents on the internet. Just look up Illuminati Population Control, and you can find it. All right, so I'm just going to read from it and talk about it. So I went on the computer, Yahoo search, and put in Illuminati Population Control. So it says here the date is first posted in 1997 on the website educateyourself.org/NWO/NWO population.html. Population Control, New World Order Style. All right, little note here. It says to post this article on Facebook, link to the tiny URL seen below. Facebook will remove any article identified as coming from educateyourself.org. So you have to be careful when you post this on Facebook, any of these articles or this stuff, because your material will be censored. Somebody does not want this information out. Even recently on some of the President Donald Trump press releases, when I check my email on Yahoo, I don't even have to look. There's a couple lines there of press releases, and they jump right out at me and saying nasty things about President Donald Trump. Not that I'm a big fan. I think he, as well as Hillary Clinton, were poor choices for we Americans to have as president. But what are you going to do? He's there. So anyways, the press release was so outrageous, I was going to cut and paste it into a Word doc so that I would be able to talk about it in one of my videos. But believe it or not, there's new things happening. Yahoo.com, the press releases, I even showed it to a friend of mine. I had to call him into my office and said, you're not going to believe this. I've been cut and pasting press releases since 2005. I've archived all this stuff and made videos and talked about them as research, teaching. But it'll let you highlight it when you hit the copy button. When you go to your Word document or clipboard, it won't allow you to paste it. And I tried it again in another document, and it wouldn't allow me to paste it. I said, oh my, they don't want people to be able to cut and paste and save this stuff. So you can see why the White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and all these other different left and right extreme groups are being brought out of the woodwork to clash for the news, the nightly news and newspapers, for public consumption to create hate. They need to make hate laws, and they do not want people looking into these issues and thinking with intelligence. Okay, so they're just warning us here, if you go get these kinds of articles from this website, educate-yourself.org, you're going to put it on Facebook or any place else, try to change the name or something because they will censor it. The Illuminati's idea of population control falls into two broad categories: limiting the size of human societies and monitoring, controlling the movement of individuals within that society. It's Monday. I started this video on Sunday, and sometimes I get off to a poor start on my speaking. But I think we get the point here. Okay, so monitoring, controlling the movement of individuals within that society. Number 2, intentionally reducing the bulk of the world's population through genocide. This is a Ken Adachi, that's the editor who wrote this. I want to give credit where credit is due, where my finger is up here. A lot of smart people out there have done some homework. And I don't just read one document and say, this is it. I read a lot of documents. And then I'm able to formulate my own thinking. Okay, so bulk of the world's population needs to be reduced through genocide via the introduction of orchestrated conflicts. We're seeing all this. Look what they've done in the Middle East. And whatever people are left alive, they're marching them into Europe and the United States in the middle of the night on planes converted to passenger jets. Mail shipping planes was in the news last year. Shipping them into major airports and busing them to rural communities, even in Pennsylvania, upsetting those rural communities. All intentional. Intentionally inserted toxic substances into the air, chemtrails. I keep talking about that. When I got up this morning to go on a business appointment, there were so many lines in the sky. It looked like railroad tracks side by side, crisscrossing the whole sky. And of course, within an hour or two, all that stuff melded together. And instead of a blue sky, we had a pasty white sky. So clearly, the chemtrailing, sky spraying of chemicals is part of all this. And interestingly enough, I'll talk about a couple books right now. But this one here, Report from Iron Mountain. Go watch my video, series number 28. But just read your one little simple thing here. Nevertheless, I just flipped it open, page 66. How ominous is that? Page 66. An effective political substitute for war would require alternate enemies, some of which might seem equally far-fetched in the context of the current war system. It may be, for instance, that gross pollution of the environment can eventually replace the possibility of mass destruction by nuclear weapons as the principal apparent threat to the survival of the species. So this report from Iron Mountain book, you can go get it online on PDF for free, I believe, or find it at a used book or a new bookstore, was a group of scientists brought together by the secret societies, high-level elites in the government, to try to come up with alternate threats to humanity to keep humans in line. Before they were using war and were using propaganda to make the citizens patriotic. So they would use that technique in Germany to make the Germans patriotic. They would use that system in Britain to make the Britons patriotic. They would use that system in France to make the French patriotic. And they would use that system in America to make the Americans patriotic. The propaganda and the news. So that these people would fight and kill each other. Thank you, Illuminati. Stuff is going on big time. Poisoning of the air and of principal sources of food and water, so that they're going to poison the air, poison the food, is already well advanced and at first glance would seem promising in this respect. So they're talking about substitutes for war. You can simply enough go to Freemasonry and Satanism, book review 28. And weirdly enough, do you ever get that tinnitus in your ear? Sounds like this. Well, every now and then, sometimes when I'm doing videos like this, lately, I just got in my ear a bass tone pumping in my ear just now while I was just talking. It's gone away now. So, how weird is that? You suppose they know what I'm doing? I remember the government's into remote viewing. I've been making videos on this stuff, having people's spirits, essence leave their bodies, spy on people, look into the future, look into the past. Apparently part of the occult. Series number 6. So this is just going back when I started my research, books I had read, and then I decided to make videos. And what else are the Illuminati up to? 911 Synthetic Terra, Webster Tarpley, plenty of evidence to suggest that it was an inside group. Series number 12, back in 2013 when I started this series, 500 video hours ago, going on completing 4 years. And I made another video, it's number 7, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. So they were bankrupting countries all over the world, and presidents who wouldn't go along, like Costa Rica, Panama, and the United States, were assassinated. Clouds of secretly, like these documents say, they were intentionally dumping viruses, plague materials, weaponry, biological weapons, even in subways in New York and LA and many other places. Go get the book. Series number 18, I just made this video. And now getting back to the Rockefellers, their history goes back a couple hundred years in the USA. But Murder by Injection clearly tells the story about the Rockefellers during the early 1900s, 1910, 1920, taking over education, the medical institutions, forcing fluoride into the water supplies, which makes us lethargic. Obedient robots. We don't think as well as we should with all that fluoride. And God knows what else they're putting in the air, and electromagnetic pollution. And the coming 5G network, go look it up. Seems like a lot of sinister, nefarious activity coming to a neighborhood near you and I very soon. And more evidence, series number 17. I made videos on this book. I'll be looking at all these books again and making more videos. Now that I know what I know now is a lot more than I knew 4 years ago, more than I knew 10 years ago, more than I knew 13 years ago. Read several hundred books, hundreds of magazines, watched maybe tens of thousands of videos, hundreds of thousands of press releases cataloged, saved on disc, printed out. The boxes would be 8 feet high if I stacked just the printed out pages of press releases and other research documents that I found, because I felt that someday in the future you wouldn't be able to get that information. So if they take down the internet tomorrow, I've got all that stuff archived and stored away. Copies on a lot of cases in case something bad happens. Emerging Viruses, AIDS, and Ebola. Nice big thick book. Leonard Horowitz was a dentist, a medical advisor for the government, activities like that. He discovered all these black op projects, creating AIDS in laboratories, and much more. You can get this book. You can go watch Leonard Horowitz's videos, or you can watch my video, number 17, Freemasonry and Satanism. So now I'll get back to the document. Just unlimited amount of evidence here that my conclusions are similar to a lot of other people's conclusions on what the heck is going on. And apparently we have a very bad day coming to us. And even John Moore from the Ozarks is talking about the imminent Planet X coming and pole shifting on Earth. Nancy Leader's talking about it. And my recent videos 142 in my series, Helena Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, talked about a pole shift in 1888. John White, in my series 139, Freemasonry and Satanism, wrote the book Pole Shift in 1980. So between the limits to growth and all this propaganda, they're going to create some kind of catastrophe, so it seems, and blaming it on something, yet again deceiving we the people all over the planet. That's my summation. So it says it right here. That's why I took a break and looked at these books. Air, chemtrails, environmental, depleted uranium. They were firing depleted uranium rockets over there in Iraq. How insane is that, to take a waste uranium from uranium manufacturing or usage from power plants? You know, they scratch their head. They go, how are we going to get rid of this stuff? It's pretty hard. Well, we'll just make rocket shells out of it and launch it over there into the desert all over Iraq. Got some crazy, insane people running our world. Water, food supply, GMOs, bioengineering. According to this guy's essay here, population control, New World Order style, the Illuminati. Weaponized diseased organisms, all these things I'm talking about. AIDS, Ebola, bird swine flu, along with anti-fertility compounds induced via vaccines and other means of external transmission. The Illuminati's current plan to reduce the world's population was set into motion in 1957, Symposium on Future World Development. The astonishing conclusion of this seemingly benign symposium was that overpopulation and excessive exploitation of the environment would result in the self-destruction of the earth by the year 2000 or shortly thereafter. Well, they predicted our doom numerous times, and numerous times the prediction did not come true. They're using all this propaganda, and it does create actions by citizens. It does affect the economy, just like the White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter issues recently in the news caused the stock market to drop $1 billion or $2 billion. So these insiders, these Illuminati, these elites, these secret societies, these Zionist, communist, Jewish people, not all Jewish people, a lot of good Jewish people, Orthodox, Shepherdetic, have written books and made famous speeches trying to warn us. I've made videos on those books and those people. Go watch my videos. Benjamin Friedman, Rabbi Marvin Antelman, Henry Mackau, PhD, Jewish author in Canada, and so many more. All right, so the Illuminati front organizations for the New World Order propaganda, like Cornell University, continue to illuminate us to this very day with this overpopulation point of view. So why don't I just take a look at this book again for a second and show you some things I was looking at. That, remember, they have to convince all their cronies, these people that they bought and paid for, politicians, senators, representatives, and other leaders all over the country, all over the world. Even the European Union was created as part of a conspiracy in secret. They didn't tell all those peoples and all those leaders what they were really going to do. And Pierre Menot, we can't get his name right, one of the conspirators to help create the European Union. I put his name in a numerology calculator, and it was 666. Kissinger is 666. So many other. Santa Claus is 666. Verachip, the microchip, 666. Go look it up on the computer. Numerology calculator, just key that in, and you'll get it, and it'll give you a long list of words, and you'll scratch your head going, what the heck is going on here? Computer is 666. So anyways, this particular chart, figure 35, World Model Standard Run, page 124. So like I said, the dupes that they bought and paid for are politicians, most of them. As per many commenters, lecturers, announcers on many interviews on YouTube videos and alternate websites and books, have said that there's very few politicians who are in the Senate or the House of Representatives and other places that are not under the control of either the elite of the Democratic Party or the elite of the Republican Party, which are both controlled by the Illuminati puppet masters, which are the Zionist Jewish folks and communist and other secret societies, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, the Kabbalist, Rosicrucian, Freemasonry, New Age movements, and thousands of other groups, and I've made book reviews on those groups. Beware of the Rainbow, Constance Cooley. Go look up that book review I made. I've come a long ways in this program. I'm getting a handle on what's going on, it seems. So anyways, the World Model Standard Run. So they plug all this stuff in a computer, and they come up with this eventual crash of the whole system. Death in the people, economic explosion, everything running out of resources, no more iron, no more tin, no more food, no more water, everything's going to run out. You suppose they pay professors in universities monies to do these studies. Even this book here was created by a university. And of course, if this study doesn't come out with intellectual information detailing the story the way they want it to be told, they won't get any more work or won't get any money. So it doesn't take a genius to doctor up a report or fix formulas in the computer to prove that gloom and doom is on its way unless we act. And then they can use books like this to feed to the politicians that they put in office. Okay, the standard world model run assumes no major change in the physical, economic, and social relationships that have historically governed the development of the world system. All variables plotted here follow historic values from 1900 to 1970. Food, industrial output, population growth exponentially until rapidly diminishing resources, base forces, a slowdown in industrial growth because of the natural delays in the system. Both population and pollution continue to increase, and sometime after the peak industrialization, population growth is finally halted by the rise in the death rate to diseased foods, decreased food and medical services. And pardon my reading of that. But anyways, it does show the resources, the top line, crashing all the way down around 2000 and something. I'll put my finger on it, and I'll hold it here so you can read this for yourself. But here's the resource chart graph right here. And this is 2010 right here. 2100, excuse me. And you can see that everything is going to run out on their graph. And then population growth and economic systems are all going to crash. And you can pause your computer and read this paragraph I just poorly read. So my point is they created all these computer graphs. And it sounds pretty intellectual, but it's meant to be. And of course, as we all know, a lot of people go, you know, Rick, there is no conspiracy. It's just poor management by the people who we elect for president or governors or senators or the people in charge of banks and industrial companies. It's just everything is just, these people are stupid. Okay, well, let's assume that's true. You get these people everybody's electing are stupid. So they create these books that seem intellectual with these nice little charts and say that we have to eliminate the world's population, reduce it by 90%, or the whole planet's going to explode. You can get the book. So it says here, I'll read a little more. The behavior mode of the system shown in figure 35 is clearly that of an overshoot and collapse. Page 125. In this run, the collapse occurs because of the non-renewable resource depletion. The industrial capital stock grows to a level that requires an enormous input of resources. In the very process of the growth, it depletes a large fraction of the resource reserves available. So we have reserves available, but the increased growth in population and industrial growth will also call on those resources at an ever-increasing rate. So we're going to run out of everything pretty soon unless we get rid of the population. As resource prices rise and mines are depleted, more and more capital must be used for obtaining resources, leaving less to be invested for future growth. Finally, investment cannot keep up with the depreciation, and the industrial base collapses, taking with it the service and agricultural systems, which have become dependent on industrial inputs such as fertilizers, pesticides, hospital laboratories, computers, and especially energy for mechanizations. For a short time, the situation is especially serious because the population, with the delays inherent in the age structure and the process of social adjustments, keep rising. Population finally decreases with the death rate when the death rate is driven upward by the lack of food and health services. So I suppose you really don't need me to read this whole book. You can go get it. But if you want this fabricated technical book on why there's too many people and how the whole system is going to crash because we're going to run out of everything, written back in, let's see, 1972. Look where we are today. So, and look where they were with getting the Palestinians land back in 1948 and promoting this new age and new world order. Can you see from the books I'm showing, the videos I've been making, the puzzle is coming together? All right, back to this document, Population Control, New World Order Style. So this Cornell University continued to illuminate us to this very day with the overpopulation point of view. President Eisenhower secretly commissioned a group of scholars known as the Jason Society to review the conclusions of the 57 Symposium. Is that 1957? The members of the Jason Society are in fact part of a secret Illuminati group known as the Order of the Quest. The same individuals who formed the Jason Society were also key members of the Council of Foreign Relations, which are controlled by the Club of Rome, created by the Rothschilds, which are the Illuminati, according to Fritz Springmeier's book, and many other books I've made videos on. And many other books I intend to read and make more videos on. At some point, it just gets redundant. You either get it or you don't. All right, not surprisingly, the Jason Society agreed with the symposium's conclusions and drafted 3 proposals for Eisenhower's consideration. So they want to eliminate the huge population. They have to keep some humans as workers, sex slaves, and for satanic sacrifices, even food, spirit cooking, Pizzagate. I don't know what these creatures are, but I suspect they're all not human. whatever the Palladians or the reptilians or the gray aliens are, and all this other stuff that's channeled by these entities from this other world, and all the channeled material you can go watch on YouTube and see many websites. The three proposals were labeled Alternative 1, Alternative 2, and Alternative 3. So again, they get together a group of elites, and they want to come up with some choices on how to take out a bulk of the population and blame it on natural forces, Planet X, maybe a plague, terrorism, World War III, but not them. Can't have people being illuminated about the Illuminati, can we? Eisenhower rejected Alternative 1 because it involved the use of nuclear weapons. However, Eisenhower did approve of implementing Alternate 2 and Alternate 3, as did the Soviet Union. So you can go look up these documents. I'll read a little bit more here. I don't have time to read all these documents, but I'll show you them right now so that if you want to look them up, but it collaborated everything that I've been saying. This is an update, Ken Adachi, Population Control, New World Order. So when you look up Illuminati, Population Control, New World Order, you'll find this document and many others. I don't think you'll be disappointed. When Methuselahs become messiahs, population control, apparently, and I have the book, but I think it's in storage, The Population Bomb, and the Eco-Science document I ordered showed that in previous videos. I showed both of these books in previous videos. But you can look up this document, again, Illuminati, Population Control. When Methusians become messiahs, population control. You can see I've read everything. It was only 2 pages. It says here, nowadays, anyone and everyone, this was Philip Collins in 2009, who raises a disparaging word about the Obama administration's policies is immediately assigned the stigma of alarmist, scaremonger, or paranoid. Perhaps such stigmas are actually applicable in some cases, like Genesis Communication Network, radio talk show Alex Jones, Fox News talk show Glenn Beck. In both of these cases, there are no doubt serious sanity issues involved. However, those who have familiarized themselves with the resume of President Obama's recently appointed science czar John Holdren will have good reason to be afraid. And he's the one who published the book, The Population Bomb, where my finger is. So Obama's science advisor, and there's 2 pages of material there, wrote a book, The Population Bomb. So he believed that we have to eliminate a good portion of the world's people. Another document I found was www.asis.com/stag/transcription/Illuminati. I'll show it to you here. You can pause your computer, look up this document. I looked at a lot of documents when I keyed in Illuminati population control. There wasn't any lack of information. Who are the Illuminati? Who are they? The front organization, as we know as the Illuminati, originated in 1776 with a guy named Adam Wuchthoff in Bavaria, the Bavarian Illuminati, and through lots of different mechanisms, took over Europe and the United States. These are the people that financed and were part of the creation of Israel with the Zionist Jewish people, and who now pretty much have a strong arm on the whole world. And I had a little short clip about the one of the ex-three-term presidents, Simon Perez. And I'll play that little clip right now. And just so you get the story here, the gist of the story, he talks about the goings-on back then in Syria and the other parts of the countries in the Middle East. But at least we remember Iraq and Afghanistan, Tunisia, Egypt, and so many other presidents and leaders who have been overthrown, and buildings destroyed, countries destroyed, millions of Arabs murdered. So what he says is amazing, is that there is no such thing as nationalism anymore. It's globalism, and the people who do not go along will be poor and irrelevant. Listen to this. Don't take my word for it. Look it up.
There are significant political changes on the map from day to day. First it was Tunisia, then Egypt, Libya, now Syria. What do all those changes mean for the Middle East? And all that's happening, is it positive for Israel?
Yes. I mean, there may be a transitional period that will create some difficulties, but in the long run, yes, look. It's not that those countries are changing. All countries are changing because the world has changed. And nobody has a choice, either to go with the modern age or to lag behind and really become poor and irrelevant. What's happening is, governments are no longer controlling their own economy. Instead of a national economy, you have a global economy. Now, if you want to enter, you have to follow the new rules of economy.
Exactly.
As you could see from that clip, they think it's all done. The world's been taken over, and we better get used to it. There is no choice, as he says. Globalization is here. These are the same people that are part of the Illuminati, Zionism, communism, control the banks, the banking systems, the elites of the world, controlling lots of resources. And now, just like any huge corporate takeover, and remember the United States is a corporation, as are all countries, sometimes you've got to restructure to make it more profitable. And in this case, the problem is they don't need all those people to feed. The useless food eaters, you and I. Kind of scary, if you believe it, and apparently the evidence is right in books that you can go purchase and read, which I've done for now going on almost 13 years. In order to preserve the best of humanity, when the supposed self-destruction of the earth takes place around the year 2000, so they say that the plan has been delayed a couple times. The preparations are not quite there. Now they're saying September 22nd or September 23rd, 2017. Next month. The Jason Society proposed that a vast network of underground cities be built in order to secure living quarters for the chosen Illuminati elite, high-level corporate politicians, and selected military elements. So I've got another book to make a review on right away. Underground bases and tunnels. Richard Sauter, Ph.D. Smarter guy than me, has a Ph.D. You can probably go find this book. You see that I've read it. I've shown this book in numerous videos. It needs to have its own video series number 31. So maybe that'll be my next video. So I can continue going over these documents I've been reading on the Illuminati. Creating biological weapons in laboratories for public consumption, building underground tunnels, mercury and other toxins in vaccines, fluoride in the drinking water making us lethargic, and other detriment additives to our food, GMO foods which are toxic to the body, many of them your cells don't recognize it as food, taking over the medical establishment, and bringing out the 5G network where everything will be under some gigantic beast computer. And Leonard Cole, I made a recent video on this book, Clouds to Secretly. They are testing these biological weapons on people. They have, and they said they will again. Go watch my video. Series 18. Series 7, go watch my video. They are intentionally bankrupting countries, assassinating presidents, taking down the Twin Towers. Plenty of evidence. You can see I read all this. So after I was reading books for almost 10 years, I decided it was time to make some videos. And I'm coming up to a milestone now, 4 years of making videos. My next video will be 150. And it should be an amazing video because the name of the book was published. The name of the book was The Cause of World Unrest. And yes, it's about the Illuminati, published in 1920. You can go look it up on the computer and read it before I make a video. And then a report from Iron Mountain. Clearly, they got some elites together and they came up with other ways to control the people instead of war, because nuclear weapons apparently eliminated that threat. Or did it? They had all these other suggestions in this book by elites on how to keep the people in line using terrorism, pollution, sustainability, and all those other crazy issues. So I'm reading this population control New World Order style that you can go look up and print out. And it does say the vast network of underground cities be built in order to secure living quarters for the chosen Illuminati elite, high-level cooperative politicians, and selected military elements. Underground cities also cohabitated, you're not going to believe this, by extraterrestrial alien elements that the secret government has made treaties with for technology exchange and human-alien hybrid breeding programs. The idea of the Earth self-destructing around the turn of the century due to overpopulation. So the planet's going to self-destruct due to overpopulation, according to this document. And they're having these extraterrestrial breeding programs. Human-alien hybrids. So they have planned for a new race of entities on Earth. The idea of the Earth self-destructing around the turn of the century due to overpopulation was perhaps an early cover story for the justification of underground cities. So like I said before, they had to make books like this, or the population bomb, or eco-science, and all this stuff. There's many out there on these topics. So that they could convince people, politicians, elites, that, yeah, the world's going to explode. We're going to have too many people. Maybe there's too many people on one side of the planet, and it'll just cause the whole thing to tip over because of all the weight will be over there. I'm being facetious. But all this material seems facetious too. Not done with sincere reasoning in mind, but all about some satanic luciferic goal of a new age and a new world order. And who says that? Well, I say that, Rick Miracle. After reading books and studying for 13 years and having 350-something videos posted on YouTube right now, more than 500 hours, and listening to other people, even today, John Moore, going to a meeting over there in Prague, over in Europe. That'll be in one of my next videos. They were over there July 2017 with a big symposium showing proof that Nibiru is coming. We're going to have a pole shift. They're going to call it the flyby. In the meantime, they're bringing out the 5G network, which is going to permeate everything with electromagnetic waves. And just to think about what they could do would boggle your mind. If you know anything about microwave energies, like your microwave oven. Need I say more? What can they do? What will they do? What are they planning to do? Thank you for watching my video. Rick Marrico reporting.